Simracing setups are always big topic in a virtual racing world. Assetto Corsa Competizione setups were always full of importance and full of secrets from the esport drivers or, well, all the other sim racers as well. Being difficult to make and always trying to find the meta setup to be the best. But in reality, they are not that complicated anymore. And I would like to show you these secrets in this video. I will show you simple ways of making easy, fast setup in ACC that some people don't want you to know. Of course, I would like to add a little disclaimer that this is my own opinion with over 4,000 hours collection data from ACC, racing left and right, being part of the big team as well. And, well, there's always something better you can find in a setup. But since 1.9 version of the game, I think the setups got a little easier, at least it looks like to me. By the way, I hope this video will not find you negative. Quite opposite, I hope you will find some improvements and something that will help you move forward. Alright, let's go! The upcoming things that I will show you doesn't mean the game is wrong. It doesn't mean that people are exploiting. It doesn't mean that you will get faster right away or anything like that. But it will show you how to understand some of the things we are as drivers using right now. I will basically show you how I do most of my setups on most of the cars. I would like to also say that this works for me from the experience on Aston Martin, Ferrari, McLaren, and some other cars. I'm not sure if this will work on every single car, like let's say AMG or Audi, but I would say 90% of the cars or 97% of the cars will use the basics that I will be showing you. Obviously, you need to adapt a lot of things, but hey, like this is just the basic video. Let's start with the basic setup. We will just open the setup, it doesn't matter. We will start with the basics. We can start with the safe preset. We will go through the windows and we will start with the tires. The tires is one of the things that actually got changed a lot in a 1.9 version of the game, where first of all, the PSI is no longer, let's say 27.5 to 27.8 as it used to be for couple of years before, but since now your optimal tire pressure when the tires are warm, so let's say after 2-3 laps, should be something high 26, so let's say 26.8 is like 26.7 is like optimal pressure when warm. So it's one of the first things. Also, the 1.9 update actually bring big nerf in a way that on a previous version of the game, there was a big meta where people were running full negative toe on all tires to make it super rotaty and still very fast. This thing actually changed a lot in 1.9 version of the game because, well, the cars got more oversteery on the new cars got more oversteery and you were killing the tires a little bit more. But this negative toe thing still exists, but you have to be a little bit more well, be careful a little bit, you know, don't overdo it. So usually you are running very high toe on the front or medium or high toe on the front and a little bit lower on the rear or almost even positive on the rear to try to remove the oversteer and killing the tires, because when you kill the rear tires it will slide a lot. So we are no longer running the full negative toe. The one thing though, 99.9% of the setups full negative camber. All the cars, or most of the cars. I never seen any setup with any car that will be running positive or something like that camber, like lower camber. Maybe in a wet, you know, you lower the camber a little bit on the rear or something, but otherwise you're running always full. So, okay, let's do first things first. When I go to the setup, we have some default pressures. What I usually personally do, go very high on caster. I don't think you always have to run full caster, but on most of the cars, you will see the full caster. The reason for that is basically the caster helps you turn a little bit more, and it will also give you like a nice response in the force field and so on. Sometimes if you're not a little bit stable car, you will remove a little bit of caster, but I think on most of the new cars, all of the new cars, you can run the full caster anyway. So basically you have like this base. But for the setups in 1.9, usually, let's say you're running full negative toe on the front, you will go around 0.2 on the rear. That's probably like super aggressive. Like we are talking right now Ferrari 296. The same things goes with McLaren. The same goes with most likely Audi and other stuff. You have to find like a right balance. Most of my setups and like setups around me will be set around, let's say, 0.2 negative toe, maybe a little more, and the rear will be, let's say, 0.1. This is like the new way of going around this. Like on some cars and quali, you can go like full negative toe or like very negative toe, but the medium, let's say, is like the best option. So like on most of my cars and setups around, I'm running let's say around 0.2 to 0.3 negative toe on the front to help you rotate the car, and to help you rotate the rear and give you traction, I'm usually running either like 0.1 or we go closer and closer to positive. Like if your race is, for example, longer, if you're racing endurance race, you're driving like a 1 full hour stint, you want the rear toe to be, I don't want to say like mostly positive, but let's say like something like this, you know, on the rear. Because you want the car to rotate as much as possible, but at the same time not lose traction, because if you destroy the rear tires, you're like done, you know? So on most of my setups, let's say we're gonna be somewhere around this. On McLaren, I like to run something like this. Lamborghini as well, I like this as well. This is like, you don't go full negative toe anymore, but you still want to use it very nicely to turn the car, but don't overdo it. So let's say if you want to be conservative, you are going to be running something like this for like a normal, for a Lambo, Audi, McLaren, Ferrari. Like you can play with it, you know, like if your car is a little bit unstable, you can add a little bit more toe. If you want a little bit more turn or oversteer, you're going to go more negative toe. Basically, the more negative toe, more car turn, but also oversteer, you know. Then electronics. Electronics is like a huge thing right now. You can see on esport drivers on Audi and Lamborghini, they are running 0 TC sometimes. You cannot do this on Ferrari and BMW and, well, other turbo cars like McLaren 720S Evo. You can use it on a previous McLaren 720, but not the Evo version. Very simply because the turbo just kicks in and you will spin. Like the super drivers are like on Audi and Lambo. I think it's only cars right now where people are trying or running 0 TC. I think the Audi is like 100%. Or you run like very low. Most of the cars, I would say Lamborghini, McLaren, Audi. What is more interesting? Probably Porsche as well. You're going to be running like very low TCs, like 1, 2 maximum. On Ferrari 296 is the other way around. You have to use like 6 in a quali, 7 in a race, maybe even 8, you know, to get traction. Like it's also important with Ferrari, for example, to change TC during the lap. You know, let's say you're using 7 TC through the lap and there's a hairpin, so you want to use 5, but you're staying like that. In terms of ABS, this is very interesting since 1.9 version of the game. We are running very low ABS compared to before, like for past 3 years. We were running 4, 5, 6 ABS on some of the tracks. Now, on most of my cars, I'm running either 2, maximum 3, but 2 is like the best, and sometimes even 1. Especially in the rain, you should try that when you're driving Ferrari 296, Lamborghini, McLaren. Try ABS 1 in the rain, and you will be surprised how good it actually is. Basically, the higher number, the more ABS interaction is, but it's better to run a little bit lower. ECU map, I will leave that. It depends on a car. Most likely, except Porsche, will be running 1. TC2, I don't think you will see anyone using TC2 in any car in 1.9. If you want to be fast, except maybe Aston Martin, I think that's might be one of the cars. But I think Audi, Lamborghini, McLaren, Ferrari, TC2 to 0. That basically helps you a little bit more with the traction and so on, but you just don't want to need it, you know. Like, you will not see it on any car, basically. Maybe if it's raining, you can add 1 on Ferrari or McLaren, but otherwise, no need to use it. Obviously, I'm talking about a little bit advanced drivers, guys. If you are super rocky, maybe you can run it. But I'm like, if you want to know like these secrets, you know, to be faster and faster and faster. Is this okay so far, guys? I'm like trying to go through it, but I don't want to explain too much stuff. I just want to show you what is done and how, you know? Brake pads. I would say very simple. If the race is, let's say 90-minute race and shorter, I would use brake pads 1. If it's 2 hours until 12 hours, I would use brake pads 2. If it's 24-hour race, it depends on your team, your car, whatever, you can use brake pads 3. Or you can use combination, depends really on a car. We were doing like 24-hour race sometimes when we drove brake pads 2 on the front, 3 on the rear, so on. Brake pads 4, I don't find any people using them. They are like testing, they are for testing the wear after like 24 hours or something like that. So we don't really use them. Usually use 1 or 2 most of the time. Now, this window will take some time and it's gonna be really interesting, guys. Like this, I'm curious what people will think. So the most important thing in ACC right now in the 1.9 version of the game, the most important is to protect your tires and to get as much grip as you can and still have the car that turns. To basically achieve that, you have to go really soft. So my base setup will go, most of the cars I will go very low steering ratio, so I have the best response. You know, like McLaren, minimum steering ratio, Ferrari. On Ferrari, I'm running like 16, 17 steering ratio because this car is a little bit weird. I kind of got lost myself in this. It depends on a car. Like Lambo, I'm running minimum. McLaren, I'm running minimum. Then Porsche, I'm in the middle. BMW, I'm in the middle. Ferrari, I'm 16 or 17. Same for Audi, a little bit lower. So this is like, I think probably it's better to find on the internet or maybe find yourself. Basically higher steering ratio, like less aggressive the wheel steering will be. But on some cars you have to go minimum because they are like very lazy, like Aston Martin. But okay, let's go forward. So we're gonna Ferrari, I'm gonna take the 16. And now we want to have as much as grip as possible and make sure the car turns as well. So what's actually how you do a base setup, guys, on 1.9 version, how it works on my setups, on people around me and most of the esport teams and basically everyone who really wants to take it seriously. So you start by going like this. This is the base. You go to 0 on these. Basically bump stop rate, wheel rate 0. And the most important parts of this setup is basically the wheel rates, bump stop range, and anti-roll bars. Now, each car is obviously different, but the reason why you go minimal wheel rate is because it just works in ACC. You know, it gives you so much grip, so much traction as well, and protective the tires. But you have to work with it, around it a little bit. I will get to that later. Then, the thing you need to work is the bump stop range on the rear. I would say on most of the cars, if you are between 10 to 20, it actually works recently very well. In a 1.8 version, we were running like 0 and such like that. But now, like, let's say 10, 20. I think my latest setups were like 15 to 20 or something like that. So you keep it there, basically, so your bump stop doesn't hit too much. Then, the very important value is the bump stop range in the front. This is, I don't like it because when the bump stop range is low, you have like really good response in turning and wheel, but you get a lot of understeer on throttle and a lot of understeer overall. So basically, because you have such a soft car, if you run higher bump stop, you can try yourself, guys. If you will run to like 0 and then you will put it like 10 and 16 or 20 or whatever your car will allow you, you will notice that the car, what will happen is basically, like very simply said, what will happen is the car will be more turning and like oversteery on the throttle. So it's a very simple way how to make the car turn. So let's say you are in a stove corner in Silverstone. You want to go on a throttle as early as possible with the car turning, you know. So the car will be turning and it will turn, like basically the front will be like lifting a little bit and it's going to be turning. As you can see, the bump stop what is doing on the front. It's basically like a little Jeep, you know. And the car will like lift and turn. But it will make the car very oversteery. So if you go like, now again, some setups, you will notice that the bump stop range, if you watch my streams, for example, the bump stop range will be like 20 or even higher, or it's gonna be 10, 15, 7. It's a very good value to try to play with the setup to make it nicely turn. You know, if you want a little bit more responsive, you don't like the oversteer, you will go a little lower value and you're good to go. But you will notice that on some like meta setups or really fast setups, people are running this very, very high, you know, very, very high. I personally like to be somewhere in between because I like to have the response. Then, of course, if your car altogether is, for example, very loose, you're racing on Spa or some other places, you are losing a lot of grip, or you want to have the car a little bit more, like, you want to have it aggressive, but you want to have it a little stable, you can play with the front wheel rates or rear wheel rates. The front wheel rates will help you with the stability. So, for example, the car is a little bit oversteery now because what the values I used overall in the whole setup, let's say if you are racing in a Spa, you go 1, 2, maybe even 3 clicks higher on the front. You can try yourself. If you run very aggressive setup, it will help the car to be more stable. Obviously, you will get more understeer, but it will work very nicely. Or if you want a little bit more oversteer, you can just do this on the rear and you will see yourself, but you might ruin the rear tires. Does this so far make sense, guys? I know this is like weird, but I really I want you to know, you know? Then, really important thing is the anti-roll bars. This, I don't want to say how this is altogether because each car is a little bit different. But for me, the anti-roll bar is making huge difference. Huge difference. And basically, when you have all this set up all together, the anti-roll bar can make huge impact. For example, on a Ferrari, I like to run like front anti-roll bar like 6, 5, 4, but 6 usually. And the rear very low, like 0, 2, to again help the car turn but gain stability. If this would be McLaren, I would have anti-roll bar on the front on maximum. Guys, honestly, on a McLaren 720S Evo, I would say 99% of the time, front anti-roll bar is on maximum. So 11, all the time. And then you adjust the rear. For example, on McLaren, you have 11 and 0 on the rear. Very nice and safe settings. And for example, for Nürburgring and such, you can go a little bit higher on the rear to make the car rotate and preserve stability, you know, on a bumpy track. So really play with the anti-roll bar. I found out on a Lamborghini, if you go somewhere in the middle and the rear somewhere in the middle, you know, it works very nicely. But most of the cars really do like having like very high front anti-roll bar and the rear, let's say 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you know. On McLaren, in 1.8, we used to be running like max on the rear. You can try it. On a Porsche, it worked quite nicely, but I would leave that up to you. You know, play with it a little bit. You just play with this a little bit, and you will see what's going to happen. The preload, basically, like how to say it simply. If you have the minimum preload, the car will be more oversteery on off throttle, but it's going to be turning off throttle more. So like this is great, for example, for Monza and so on. You know, the car is already like oversteering nicely. So this will help you turn beautifully in the chicanes. If you want the car to be more stable off throttle, let's say you're doing like Suzuka 130R, you know, you want to like lift and not die there, you will go a little bit higher, which will give you more stability, but also more oversteer on the throttle, you know. So if you like have like 300, the car will be very rotating on the throttle. So usually on a 1.8 version, we were like running very high or like mid-wheel, but now in 1.9, I noticed that I'm running usually like almost 0, like on most of the cars, or just a little bit, you know, to help the turn. So this was very exhausting, the mechanical grip, guys. Like this is like crazy, but I hope it will help you work with the setups. Again, guys, this is my opinion, so please don't hate me for this. Now, we are going to the most interesting part, dampers. Dampers were always the biggest secrets in ACC. Huge secret. And people were using Motec, are using Motec to have the best value, you know, to like, you know, perfect, you know, like numbers like that, you know, to have the perfect dampers on a suspension to work the best. But I noticed a huge thing on 1.9 version of the, like, when I see any kind of esports setup, not mine, not my friends, not people around me, like any setup, like from random person I never even knew, and I somehow got a hands, you know, on his setup, their setup, they are running basically the same thing. So I think this got a little bit simpler, guys. It got weird, but it got simpler. And basically the new meta that I'm using on... I think I'm using this on 100% of my setups, guys, personally. 100% of my setups are looking like this right now. Full, 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 full. 0, 0, 0, 0. 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. Full, full, full. Don't ask me why, but this works. You can play with the bump on the front to maximum of number 2. Maybe 1 on the rear, depends. Basically, if you want a little bit more oversteer on the rear, you just add 1. If you want a little more stability on the front, you add 1 or 2. But I guarantee you guys, if you would see, maybe not Nils, because Nils is very trying to be careful with this. He's like very, I don't want to say old school in this, but he's like very into Motec. And I think the Motec will still make you the best. But when you will see setup from, I would say, if I would take 10 random esport drivers on the top of esport, their setup will mostly, or their dampers will mostly look like this. Obviously, I'm not 100% sure if this works on AMG and Porsche, but like Ferrari, McLaren, Lamborghini, Audi, this is something you want to have, and this is something you can try yourself, guys. Like, if you would see any of my setups from recent 2-3 months, this is what the dampers looks like. You can check my streams yourself, and you will probably notice, guys, because I'm not hiding the setups anymore on the streams. So this is like the big thing, because before I was using, like, or people around me were using Motec, and I heard a lot of people using Motec, but now this actually, don't ask me why, guys, it's just the 1.9 version of the game, you know, like of the ACC. It lacks passion. It lacks passion, in my opinion. I don't think there's any passion in the setups anymore. I think the 1.8 version, yes, it had full negative toe, but otherwise the setups were like very passionate. But now on this version of the game, I see most of the setups like this. Like, I literally got a setup from a person I never met before. They sent me setup for Aston Martin. It looked like this, you know? So, yeah. But I'm also saying, guys, this is not guarantee, you know? I don't want to guarantee you this. It's just you have to work yourself together. Then, the Aero. Aero, I would say, very simple. Assume your brake ducts, whatever. Basically, the brake ducts will give you more heat in the tires and the brakes. So basically, if it's like 50 degrees, you want to have a high brake ducts. If the track is 15 degrees, you want to have a lower brake ducts, and so on, so on. In terms of Aero, usually the front ride height is like minimum 1, 2, 3, 4, really depending on the track. And you play with your ride height on the rear. Now, I will leave to anyone. I think you can play beautifully with the ride height on the cars. It really works very nicely in ACC. On some cars, you're running like 74, let's say McLaren. But for example, new Ferrari works completely different. So you're running like, let's say 68, 69, you know, and stuff like that when you are on a full wing. Now, on some cars like McLaren Evo, BMW, and some other cars, you can run a little bit lower wing, you know, also Lamborghini, you can like a little bit lower wing, but it really, really depends on you. If you're running Audi, I would just go full wing all the time, you know, and basically just very simple, lower ride height is more stability, more grip on the rear, but more understeer. More ride height will give you more turn, beautiful turning car, but obviously more, less grip, you know. So yeah, does this guys all make sense? Obviously, you create some setup, and then you have to work with the anti-roll bars. You have to probably add a little bit more front wheel rate and stuff like that. Like, I don't want to just say, you guys, you just do like values like that, and it's gonna work. On each car, you have to like, okay, now I have like, this is like my base setup right now. I will go on a track, I will do some practice, and I will be like, okay, this car is a little bit more understeery, so I will add a little bit more ride height. I will try it. I will find out the car is a little bit better, but there's lack of grip. So we can change maybe the anti-roll bar a little bit, or change the wheel rate, you know, like to give a little bit more stability in the fast corners and stuff like that. It's everything. You have to put everything together, you know. When I have this, for example, I'm like, my rear is sliding a little bit too much. Let's do this on the rear toe. That will help so much, and remove the front a little bit like this, you know. This is like the combo I would do, guys, if I would be yourself. Maybe try yourself. And I hope this video will help you and understand the 1.9 version of the game. Please don't hate me if you see this. because in every sim racing game there's something different that works, and I think the 1.9 version made this very easy for a lot of people, because I feel like I like the dampers, the mechanical grip and so on is very, very simple now. And yeah, just let me know, guys, what do you think? Important to say, obviously this setup things is different for each track. For example, if you go to Monza or Spa or maybe even Kota and stuff like that, most of the cars, most of the tracks you're running like very high wing or full wing, but on lower wing tracks, like let's say, I don't know, Spa, with McLaren you're driving like 1-2 wing and you want to go like very low rear right height, and then you obviously want to adjust stuff like to make it stable at the same time, you know. So you might be like very low on a wheel rate, you might be very high on a wheel rate. It all depends on what you prefer, your preference is, and how the track actually is itself. I know, guys, this was very long and exhausting video, but let me know in the comments if it actually helped you, if you enjoyed this, and if some of the things you tried from my video, maybe on your setups, if it helped you a little bit more to understand how the ACC currently on 1.9 version works. And what do you think about the setups overall in ACC? Let me know as well. And if you enjoyed the video, guys, of course, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. My name is Jardier. I'm streaming all the time as well. And thank you so much, guys, for watching and supporting. And, well, if you'd like to support, you can become a member. You can join our Discord or Twitter or Instagram. And, well, thank you so much, guys, and hope to see you in the next time. And on the live stream as well.